Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Byte Marx. And to keep in the spirit of the spooky season, I've done something which I think I've always wanted to do but never actually managed, i.e., they've never really replied to my emails. That is, I've got an indie game developer actually here on the podcast to talk about their games and themselves and all of this stuff. Say hello to one of my favorite game creators, Beyond Booleans.
Hello. Hello there.
Yes, Beyond Booleans. Oh, by the way, pronoun check. I'm Emilio. I go by he, him.
I'm he, him as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. My name's Jake. I should say that. My name's Jake.
So I think the first question that I have for you is why Beyond Booleans? Because it is a cool name and you have a cool profile picture, but that is an unusual.
Well, I sort of so when I was starting out programming, I started as a complete novice in lockdown, like one of the first lockdowns. I thought, well, I'm gonna try and make a game. It seems like the time to sort of try stuff you haven't tried before. So, and when I was starting out programming, the easiest way of getting something to work, which I still lean on a lot, is just a Boolean, which is yes or no, on or off.
Mm-hmm.
This happens and this happens, keywords and stuff like that. So yeah, and I mean, it's a funny word, isn't it, Boolean? I love it as a word. And I think it was actually a friend of mine who suggested like Beyond Booleans, because like you make things beyond that. That's the building blocks, but then you make other stuff on top of it. And I thought, oh yeah. And then yeah, the logo is just that was my first. I don't know if you ever played like the really, really early demo of Abscission, but I had these sort of different sort of quite hyper realistic portraits, which took ages to do, and the colors weren't great. But like the original Stanhope, that was his face. So then I sort of changed that up later. I liked the intense glare that he had. So
Yes.
So yeah, so I just sort of changed that and put the Booleans coming out of his head.
Right.
Yeah,
that is interesting. I thought it was something about programming because I used to teach programming at a university.
Okay.
So, I'm very familiar with that stuff. And like, is it an art thing? I'm not really sure. But for those of you who aren't aware, Jake is the creator of a number of very cool point-and-click adventure games, mostly horror games. Famously creator of Abscission, award-winning creator of Abscission. And you've got a new game coming out, I think, which is the tragic loss of M. Slazik.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm working on now. It's so at the moment I'm currently redoing the demo. So because like I started from sort of knowing nothing about pixel art or animation or programming or anything. I did have some experience in writing, but just as like a hobby. So as I go, I am tending to sort of learn a lot about like game design and what I like with regards to animation and stuff. So I'm not happy with a lot of the Slazak was sort of my second game that I started after Abscission, and then I did a demo for that, and then I did a demo for Carnival, and I sort of ran with Carnival. So I'm going back to something which has got a very old baseline, and my animation style has changed a lot since. So I'm redoing basically the whole demo of Slazak. I'll keep some of the backgrounds. I'll keep and tweak and stuff, but I'm redoing a lot of it. So I'm not starting as a continuation of the demo. I'm going to redo the demo and release that for a next fest at some point.
Sure,
with all new graphics and stuff. Yeah.
I do want to ask though, like, what made you want to make video games? Because you have very distinctive ideas, I think, when it comes to the games that you've played, and we can talk about that later. But like, you said you started in COVID. Like, what actually made you want to make video games? Are you a lifelong gamer?
Yeah, like lifelong gamer. I started with an Amiga when I was 8 or 9 or something like that, and absolutely loved it. Always loved going to arcades. I've wanted to make a game since I was a tiny kid. Like the first one that made me really want to do it was probably King's Quest 6. Just look at the backgrounds of that, and I thought I'd love to do that. And the beach, I thought I'd love to make a little thing, and you can search around the stuff. And but I never thought of sort of taking the plunge. I didn't really know where to start. I also love writing, and I sort of tended to then I just sort of moved more into writing because it's a lot less, there's less facets to work on there when you're writing. You're just doing the words and the story. So yeah,
Is that what inspired you to make point and click adventure games? Because they're basically just very writing heavy.
yes, yeah, I always loved point and click adventure games. I I'm not like a massive fan of moon logic puzzles, but I do. But I do like interesting puzzles. I love pixel art animation. I mean, one of my most vivid memories and is like playing Monkey Island 2 at some kid's house, playing through the whole game from start to finish in one day because he knew what to do. He had like the
right, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't work it out. But I loved it, and yeah, I've always just, and I'm so glad that sort of I didn't like the leap to 3D. I was never a fan of that. I always preferred sort of 2D games.
You and I are kindred spirits because I'm also not a huge fan of 3D games.
Yeah. And that's not to say I don't play lots of. I mean, there's some amazing games now, and they look fantastic. But there's something about pixel art that sort of scratches an itch.
I think it's because there's a gap between like fidelity and imagination, and
yeah.
You have the room to fill in the blanks. It's like if you're playing like an actual tabletop game, your mind will fill in a lot of the blanks that other stuff is there for.
Yeah.
And so I think, especially in a horror format, there's a lot of room for interpretation about what something actually looks like.
Yes.
And that's kind of interesting. And this is a great segue because you do make horror games. Did you decide to only make horror games, or is that just something that just happens? When you're planning out a story.
I do tend to. So when I was writing sort of fiction, it tended to be. I mean, my first book was sci-fi, and then I did horror. It was sort of a zombie book, and then it was sort of weird, uncanny, weird fiction. And I've always liked that. I mean, I grew up on Ray Bradbury and a huge ton of weird horror and sci-fi books that my dad had from like the 60s. Yeah, I've always sort of leaned into that. I don't know why. And it's not because I'm actually like quite an optimistic. I'm a very sensitive, gentle soul, and I don't like. And there's a lot of horror that I don't like. I'm not into like torture porn, or I don't really like slasher stuff. I don't really like stuff that's too realistic or too tied to the real world. I don't like any true crime. I'm not fascinated by serial killers or anything like that. I find that really abhorrent, and I can't stand it because it's too real. So my horror tends to be very otherworldly. I think it's the mystery more than necessarily the horror, but mystery has to have a tension to it, and the tension for me comes from strangeness and things that
it is very interesting because I think anybody who's played your games, and there are 6 of them now, certainly almost all of them are united by the theme of weird stuff happens. And kind of what I like about your games, and I said this in the video that I made about you, is that you don't really explain anything.
Yeah.
No, you don't really explain anything. It's almost Lovecraftian in a way, where things just happen to the people in your world, and there are some context clues, but you never just stop and go, okay, well, this is the cosmology of the universe. Especially with some of your games like Teeth of Glass and Snarl. Those are games that could, if nobody had seen anything else, and even Carnival to some extent, if nobody had seen anything about you, they wouldn't know that they're all drawing from the same well of otherworldly strangeness.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's that's very interesting. The other thing, I guess, that sort of is like you mentioned earlier that you're not a fan of moon logic. So I think a lot of your games are very dialogue heavy. Oftentimes the puzzles that are in your game is trying to figure out the right, like in Abscission, you have moments where where Stanhope has to pick like a temperament reaction, and you have to decide from listening to the person what will work best. Is that the kind of puzzle that you prefer to have, or is it just the way that you like incorporate writing into your game design?
Um, yeah, I think it's partly. I mean, I am trying to develop my sort of my ability to write puzzles. I think part of it is especially when I started, I was very confident. Not very confident. I was more confident in my ability to do a narrative, like a strong narrative, than I was to make up some really interesting puzzles.
Mhm.
I mean, Snarl is a lot more puzzle heavy than Abscission. I try to sort of and that's just I'm sort of trying to move into that. But I also I I do I, in real I wanted to add an essence of realism to it as well. As much as
Mhm.
all of the stuff is odd, like you don't tend to have many obstructions like that in real life, where you've got to construct things to get in a certain door and stuff like that. It sometimes can pull, especially if I'm trying to convey a really sort of quite an emotive narrative, or an interesting narrative. I don't want to slow it down,
Hmm.
or like bring it to a halt, and then people do try and work something out for 2 hours and they get frustrated, and then they've forgotten what the actual story is by the time they get back in.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so and some people really like that, and like Carnival, but I've had some people in Carnival say, oh, there's not enough puzzles and things like that, and that's, yeah, that sort of a choice. It is a lot more narrative focused in Carnival, but I just felt that, I don't know, too many obstructions would slow it down, and yeah, it's supposed to be a narrative, so it's tough trying to find the balance, and I don't, I'm not saying I'm always going to get it right.
Yeah, I
um
think it is interesting because in any kind of these types of games, the minute the player is frustrated, they feel like they're not making progress. That's when their enthusiasm for the game can rapidly plummet. And
yeah
I've played games where I've had those moments where it just feels like frustrating, and nothing that's like usually in these types of games, the way you want it to flow is that the player's first thought about something, they pick up an item, they should have a thought about where that item should go, and if that is correct, so it's like I pick up a screwdriver, wait a minute, I've seen a thing that has screws, that is like how you sort of keep them hooked, right? It's
yeah
those little moments of like, oh, okay, I'm actually thinking about this, and the game is working with me, and we're on the same wavelength. When those two
yeah
wavelengths diverge, that's when either the player is not thinking about it in the right way, or the game designer is not thinking about what the player is thinking of, and then that's where a lot of frustration comes in.
yeah
It is interesting that you mentioned that some feedback that you got was that Carnival was maybe not puzzle heavy enough. I Sometimes I think people use the term walking simulator very like derogatory, because
yeah
I think it is a disservice to the art form of video games to completely sort of dictate what a video game completely is,
yeah
um,
yeah
and so I think you can have a game that is a walking simulator that is actually a very effective
yeah yeah
game. It just needs to obviously have a good story. It needs to have
yeah
good atmosphere and stuff like that.
yeah
Have you considered making a walking simulator, or is there something about like I don't know the way you make the games or the types of games that you want to make that draws you back to these point and clicks?
um I think part of it is the fact that, so I found adventure. I wanted to When I wanted to make a game, I thought I want to make a point and click first. That was just my
Mhm.
first idea. Because a lot of things I've been writing, because I also had written like lots of Call of Cthulhu games for my friends and things like that, and I thought that'd fit well, because there is a level of puzzling, but there's also a level of interaction. So I thought that'd fit well to the format of point and click. So I started using Adventure Game Studio because it's free,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't know how complex it is compared to other things, and I've spoke to other developers since who use Unity and things like that. Like I chat to the developer of Midnight Special a lot, um,
Hmm.
and yeah, I don't honestly know that anything I do in Adventure Game Studio would fit with any other code. I've never tried to code in anything else, so that's partly why I'm not doing anything else, is because I'm entrenched, but I love it and I know what I'm doing with it now. So, and I've still got so many games that I want to make, because I've got games planned for 5 or 10 years,
Wow.
in Adventure Game Studio, and like some games in this universe, and then when this sort of story arc ends, I've got like there's a big standalone game I want to do, and there's loads of other stuff, and I've thought of how to use Adventure Game Studio to do things differently,
yeah,
and but
it's
yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Walking simulator, yeah, and again, walking simulators, I don't find that a turn off because like things like, have you ever played The Invincible?
yeah.
I love The Invincible, and there's hardly any interaction in that. I mean, you could say something like Still Wakes the Deep's pretty much a walking simulator, but it's fantastic, and it's the story that, and I
It's
I prefer
really
story than
it's really a
yeah,
playable movie. Still Wakes the Deep.
yeah.
It's not so much a well. I think when people use the word walking simulator, they kind of think about like a game where nothing happens. But I would not use the word "nothing happens" for Still Wakes the Deep.
No,
That is
not at all.
definitely a game where lots of things happen. You know, it's really a playable movie. There should maybe a term that we should start using, playable movie, because Carnival gives me that vibe, right? Carnival gives me the vibe of like a movie that was maybe produced on a small budget, like I don't know, like an Italian movie that was dubbed into English. You know, that's the kind of vibe that I get from Carnival, which is, oh, this is weird and strange, and you know, it's a bit unusual, but you know, this was cinema back in the early '90s or the '80s or the '70s, right? But you know, it is interesting because I think about the ways in which you do your game design. I think you make short games, but they're very dense, right? They're very dense. There's usually a lot of sort of branching, right? And that's something that I think sets aside a lot of, because I've played other people's point and click adventure games. Like I said, I've played like over 200, and a lot of them don't have as much branching. You know, like I think of Abscission, which has 4 different endings, which are very different. But you can do a lot of stuff to actually change the scenario. You know, I guess there will be spoilers for Abscission, viewers at home. You know, like the way that you interact with Braintree can recontextualize a lot in terms of how you sort of see the story. Like, are you antagonistic to him or are you not antagonistic to him? And it's a simple choice, yes or no, basically. But it does change a lot of how the game goes. And you know, why is that like important for you as a, because it's a thing that happens in Snarl as well, and it also happens in I want to say, I think there's like you have multiple endings in Anchorite, and to some extent Carnival, you have a lot of those. There's like really different endings in Carnival that are like very strange.
Yeah. Well, so I like to, as much as I want to make a sort of a strong, tight story which by definition, like, because I think in like bigger, massive open world games like Grand Theft Auto and stuff, which I know, you know, people love Grand Theft Auto, or like the Assassin's Creeds and stuff. They're too big for me, because you'll have like complete lulls in drama, and then it'll spike, and then it'll lull, and it doesn't slowly creep up, and which I think is effective in horror. I think in other genres it might not matter as much, but horror, I think you ramp up the tension. Like, it's very important, otherwise the scares won't hit, and the ideas won't be as impactful. So I want to try and keep that, but I also want to have a level of player agency, because it is a game, and as much as my games are very narrative heavy, I don't want them to feel like you're just watching it. I want to feel like you are having an impact, and it can be whichever impact you choose it to be. And I can't always do a lot of that. I mean, with the Anchorite, that was a 2-week game, so there wasn't a lot. So the ending, there's a little choice towards the end, which sort of can lead down a couple of slightly different endings, but it's not massive. But I want to at least always have 2 endings in every game that I do, or more.
So with regards to the multiple endings, because I know that your games are kind of, at least all of them except the Anchorite, I think are all in some kind of shared universe, which the Beyond Boolean verse, right?
Yes.
The Beyond Boolean verse.
I have got an internal name for this particular universe, but I can't reveal it until a couple of games down the line. So.
Right, sure. The way of every classic auteur, You can keep your secrets. But I guess the question is, there are lots of these different endings, but like, how do you approach canon, right? Because
Yeah.
based on how you play Abscission, like Stanhope can either die, be permanently maimed, or like, he can have a very different ending, and
Yeah.
other characters can also have different endings. And I think, okay, well, uh, there's and even Carnival, right? Carnival can have these different endings, and those
Mhm.
endings can have, I guess, to some extent, cosmological significance, because
Yeah.
at the end of Carnival, you can like stare down the local Venetian Cthulhu.
Yeah.
And that's very different to if you just ran away back to England, which, very dreary country, but hopefully not as bad as
Hey,
dealing with
what you
Cthulhu.
say? How dare you?
Listen, I'm South African. I'm used to having good weather.
Okay, fair enough. And big spiders. I mean, come on.
Spiders don't bother me. I don't have
Oh God.
arachnophobia.
Oh no, I can't. I can't do it. Anyway. No, can't do it. Yeah. Well, with canon, so basically, I'll have multiple endings, but I'll always have what I consider the canon ending in my head, and then that's what I'll work with in future games. Which I don't think I'm far enough along to see if that is really going to annoy people. In that, if they, Stanhope dies, but what if Stanhope comes back? Then, well, he's come back. But I do have a canon ending for all of my games in my mind, and that's what I use. So that, like at the end of Snarl, you see someone come back in a way that indicates what the canon ending is of Teeth of Glass, things like
Right.
that. So yeah, there is I do have a through line, because I do have, like, they're all part of, apart from the anchorite, they're all part of a shared narrative, like a story, which again, I like when you're talking about not being exposit, like it's a lot of mystery in my games, but that's because, like, if something is deep and secret and has been secret for centuries, they're not just going to, first person that asks the question, oh, I'm glad you asked, here it is, here's what's going on. They're not going to do that. They'll say, no, I'm not going to talk. Like, I've got my own things there's things, these unknowable forces aren't, they're unknowable for a reason. Cults are secret for a reason. They hide,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you know
Carnival really does capture that feeling of being a complete outsider, because not only are you an outsider to a weird Venetian cult, but you're also an outsider to Venice itself.
Yeah.
And a lot of the hostility that you receive, a lot of the xenophobia, is just regular xenophobia, but it makes it actually difficult to sort of tease out,
Yeah.
that I'm here, and people who are trying to hide something from me because there's some weird cult that they've got.
Yes.
It's unusual because, and I will talk about Carnival later, but I just want to circle back to some of the gameplay things. It is unusual, I think, that you have these dialogue heavy sort of gameplay segments, because you kind of have to imagine, like how do you find the voice of the characters, right? Because you have so many, especially like Abscission has a lot of characters, and they all
Yeah.
have these distinct personalities. But when you do your writing, do you like write it out as a story first and then design it as a game? Or do you start with a game and then sort of build the story after?
Uh, I think if I was a better game developer, I'd do a lot more planning. But as it is, what I do is I'll have sort of a rough end point in mind, and a rough start point, and maybe some little ideas and beats and things like that. But then I'll basically start. I mean, like Slazak, I haven't written Slazak. I've got an idea of where it's going to go, and I started to, because Slazak actually started. It started as a one shot Call of Cthulhu adventure that I ran for my friends.
Mhm.
And then I was
It
going to
does
then
have
do
that
that. I thought,
vibe.
yeah, and I thought, oh, that'll fit well into a story. But then I thought, well, actually, I'm going to expand it a bit, and then now the story has gone in a completely different direction. And yeah, so like, and dialogue especially, I'll tend to write. I might write a full like if I've got like a couple of hours and I'm not near a computer, I might write a full scene in a different document and then port it over. But generally, I don't like write the whole game, because I like to also, when an idea comes up, be able to sort of largely seamlessly just stick it in, and rather than
Right. You
being think
want to kind of surprise yourself even as you're doing
yeah.
this.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite moment when I was writing, or one of them was when I was writing a book called Heal the Sick, Raise the Dead, which was my zombie book, and I had these three characters, and like I was just writing it, and then the character, I thought the character, I thought, no, they're going to do this, and it was completely opposite to what I thought was going to happen, but it fitted the character, and I thought, it was like the character was alive, and it was really good,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
so I like that, and if and yeah, it's if I've got a level of mystery about the story, then I can be sure that whoever's playing it will have a level of mystery. So, you
No,
know,
that's a fantastic way to think about it. I mean, I have a background in computer programming. I have a computer science degrees, and my programming teacher, she used to say that like the sooner you start coding, the longer it'll actually take. And what
yeah,
she meant by that is that like you have to plan everything out. But a computer program is not a story. And I've tried my hand at game development as well, and I generally try to follow that approach of come up with some rough outline and then like know roughly how things are going to start and how things are going to end, and then sort of like try and bridge them together, which is sort of my approach. Have you ever played any like text based choose your own adventure games?
yeah. I mean, I one of my earliest games that I had was, and I've still got it actually, is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah,
The
I think I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, the text adventure. So yeah, I played a few of those, and I know about like Zork and stuff like that. And I used to
So
play
the
choose your own adventure books. I used to
Yeah,
play
I love
those a lot.
those.
Yeah, I love those.
Well,
Yeah,
the reason why I ask is because, firstly, I think of like those choose your own adventures. Those are like the precursors, really, to the
yeah,
point and click, because they're more restrictive. You only have certain fixed options, but they are basically the same thing. You just broaden the
yeah,
scope and you've got a point and click. But
yeah,
the reason why I ask is because, I there is like a thriving niche community of people who make modern choose your own adventure books. They're
yeah.
game books, basically. And as you were talking about it, I was wondering, maybe that would be something that you could look into,
I've
because
written one.
yeah, okay, oh, wow, wow,
Yeah. So if you look at it's on Amazon, it's called Shy. So I wrote this was when did I write it? Let me see when it came out. So this was I wanted to do a choose your own adventure Japanese horror.
oh wow, that'd be cool.
Um, so with all these different yokai and odd things, and basically you've got like a limited amount of time to
Hmm.
find your brother. Um,
Cool.
and going to certain locations then moves the timer on. So 2014, so it's
Oh,
11
okay.
years old. I mean,
Okay.
again, no one cares about it. It's got like 9 reviews, but it was fun to write, and that was really really interesting. And I had to sort of work out each branch and had to make sure that there was no branches that ended in nothing, and that
Mhm.
things could sort of come back. But yeah, I really enjoyed writing that. I'm gonna make that's another one that I'm planning to turn into a game. Um,
Oh, that'd be fun. I love
yeah, with
Japanese mythology.
with a slightly different. I'm gonna have a slightly different visual style and sort of a panel underneath, because I've never worked with like a static inventory and stuff like that, and sort of probably side scrolling. I haven't decided yet, but that's in my plan is to redo Shy as
That's
a
interesting because
yeah,
I've tried my hand at making these types of games. I actually like them because for me they're very easy to program compared to the things that I regularly have to program.
yeah.
So for me, the real hurdle is overcoming the writing aspect, but that's why they're challenging. Um, so the last thing really on like part one of this interview is how before we I guess talk a little bit more about just specific games, because as I mentioned before, I have lots of questions and I'm talking to the guy who made the game, so you're the person to ask.
Yeah.
So my last question, that's about general game development, is do you would you want to do this full time, right? Would you want to become a game developer? If do you foresee this becoming like your actual job, or are you content to occasionally just make a game as an auteur, sort of as a side project?
I so so my current job is very different in that I teach woodwork to young people with special educational needs.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm out in a woodland. There's like no screens, you know. It's just we've just got a log fire,
Nice.
and we just using hand tools. We just make stools and all sorts of things. So that's what I do in my day to day, and I like the contrast. I found that over the summer I was off because of the college summer holiday, and I worked really hard. I was releasing Carnival at the end of the summer, and I was also working on Snarl at the same time, trying to release it around the same time. I was trying to release Snarl ahead of it to try and just advertise it slightly, but it didn't work out. But I found that it was quite intense, and I tended to work like 7 days. I found it very hard to rest if I'm working on it. So I think although I'd enjoy it in a certain aspect, I think it'd be quite unhealthy for me. But also I think that potentially it would, because it's my outlet and it's my hobby, it would take away from that. But also I love it, so I don't know. Like it might be fine. And if I start making so much money that it doesn't make any sense to do something else, maybe I will. But at the moment, I don't have any plans to change because. But I don't. But then again, I'm always looking for more time to develop. I don't know really. So.
No, it's the indie game scene is very much. It's like you're in a vast ocean, and every so often, a tiny fish becomes a huge whale. Right? Nobody can really foresee whose indie project will set the internet on fire. Are you familiar with the game Hollow Knight?
Yes, yeah.
Nobody could have foreseen that like 3 guys from Australia would have made a game so large that it would crash the Steam store page.
Yeah.
When they released Silksong. So it's like it really is hard to say. And the thing about the indie, the point and click adventure scene is that there are only so many actual like auteur developers. There are only so many developers in the scene, and sometimes you all a little bit blur together, like who actually made this game. When I look at them, and I think, okay, well, realistically, somehow one person is bound to become the next big thing. But I do agree with you that like if it became your job, maybe the pressure would kind of get to you and sort of hurt the creative process.
Yeah. So I mean, one thing I'm definitely sort of keeping in mind is the fact that I love working for myself, and like if I was because I've had some inquiries about doing various like doing art and animation for another project and stuff. I think I'd be happy to write for another project because that's different. But if I was illustrating someone else's story, I think I'd find that quite difficult. I mean, part of the reason I don't plan stories all the way through and then work on them is because I would get very bored, because I think my attention span wouldn't last. I like to be able to move around. I like to not know what's going to happen next in the story, as a way of, because doing a game could take 2 or 3 years. You have to really want to finish it, like to get through some of the really like dull things, like some of the lengthy coding, and like a puzzle's cool when you see it, but then like trying to code it behind the scenes can get really tedious. So you have to maintain a level of interest, and I think that it'd just be me finding the sweet spot between. And at the moment, like I can do whatever I want. Like, and my games, like, I never thought that people would enjoy a game about 1930s fascist Venice. About a guy investigating a road bridge. It'd be a hard sell for a publisher, but I can just do that. I can just do whatever I want. So
no gods, no kings, only British men in foreign lands.
Exactly. Yeah.
I did mention this to you beforehand, but I do find it funny that William Stanhope is the most British sounding man ever, but he's in the United States. And it is interesting because you're a British developer, and it comes through in your games, certainly. But it is interesting that you choose to make games outside of Britain, because I think, and you mentioned it earlier, is that Abscission makes sense in the United States because Will makes sense as a policeman and policing in the United States is very different. It's more gung ho.
Yeah.
He gets into gunfights, I think, like twice over the course of the story. So that's not something that would be commonplace in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
So, definitely, if you want a more action-oriented game, setting it in the United States makes sense. But like, have you thought about making other locales? Like, have you not necessarily just transplanting Stanhope in a world tour, but like making games in other places?
Yeah, I mean, well, so Tragic Loss of M. Slazak is set in Britain, and which I mean, yeah, Miroslav Slazak, not the protagonist, but his grandson Boris is. But they're Polish immigrants to Britain. So, and I want to make a game set in Japan, and there's another huge game that I want to make, which is set in England and Scotland, and there's lots of places I'd like to make the game. I just it's sort of thinking about what would suit, and like if there's more like games in the sort of the Stanhopeverse that would be set in Massachusetts. But yeah, it's just whatever sort of suits the story really. And I like the research aspect because again, because I know a lot about Britain, I could set it and it's familiar, but that also is not as exciting. Like I loved researching for Carnival and finding out because you'd find little bits of lore which would like folklore which would tie in with what I'm trying to do and which would show a different sort of facet of if my story was true, then this would tie in with that, like the babao and things like that. And because there's some really really dark, weird folklore around, and it's I enjoyed it as much as it
Oh no, you can definitely
add
tell.
color to it, but I just enjoyed like learning about it. So
I would recommend if you're looking for a spooky place, I would suggest you set a game in South Africa because we have some very strange lore locally here, and we obviously have a colonial connection to the British Empire. So like, because one of my are you familiar with the game The Lost Door?
Oh, I love The Last Door. Yeah.
Yeah, The Lost Door is great. It's weird that those guys went from making that game to Blasphemous.
Yeah, I know. I really wish they'd go back and do something, but because I like the art of Blasphemous, but it's not my kind of game. So.
Oh yeah, I mean I've played Blasphemous, and it's a hard game, but it'd be like if you made the next Dark Souls.
Yeah.
It's completely disconnected. But part of a bit that I found very interesting is a part of The Lost Door is like referencing eldritch stuff that happened in the Boer War, and I thought that was a real fun detail that they didn't have to include. But if you know anything about the Boer War, it's crazy, the Anglo-Boer War, and it's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, there's some weird stuff here, and so it's one of those things where the more flexible you are with your scope, the stranger your stories can become. And it's just something to keep in mind. But it was funny that they went from.
Yeah. One of my closest friends who I'm sort of working on another game with at some point is actually like a leading expert on the Boer War. He's like the head of war studies at a university, and he does tours and he's written books on the Boer War. So yeah, I would be able to get good information on the Boer War if quite easily. So yeah, it's quite an interesting coincidence. So.
Yeah, it's fascinating because we have a lot of people who collect swords. Because in addition to all the other things that I do, I also run a HEMA club. Do you know what that is?
Oh.
So we do historical fencing.
Oh, and, okay. All right.
Yeah. So I'm also a historical fencing instructor in my spare time, and we have a huge number of swords left over in this country from the Boer War. That show up every so often for an auction, including a sword that was involved in a murder in the 1960s. So that's the sword that has quite a story. So it's always fun to see these little relics of the past, right? That show up in places where we don't expect.
Yeah.
So that brings me, I think, to the second part of this interview, which is I really have many questions about Abscission.
Yeah.
And, I'd love it if you could, obviously, keep your secrets to yourself. But if there's anything that you're comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear it. So,
Okay.
so the first thing about like Abscission is I mentioned it's interesting that like there is obviously this deeper connected universe, right? You've got the lady, the queen beyond the gate, and she's some kind of powerful entity. But is that entity the same entity that is in Carnival, or are those different entities, or the same manifestation of different manifestations of the same thing? Which is my question.
Uh, so, are we going to add spoiler warnings here?
Yeah, there will be a spoiler warning.
So the queen is not the same entity as the Babao.
Oh, interesting.
But
It's,
yeah, they are
I,
connected.
I have a board. I have a board where it's
Yeah.
like I have to like add a pin now
Okay.
and cross out my lines, because I actually thought that they might have been the same thing.
There is a
which
clue if you look at the so in the bottom of the well,
Mhm.
you look at a like the inscriptions on the wall.
Yeah.
There's a clue to how it's that I might have to tell you this afterwards. I don't mind telling you, but I'll tell you
Yeah,
afterwards.
sure. No, because no, it's fascinating because I do actually want to make a video, sort
Yeah.
of trying to piece together your lore, and it is just sort of my own curiosity. Because look, I can't say this enough. It's fascinating, right? One of the
Yeah.
strengths of your game is that it's such a bizarre world, and I'm a huge fan of Lovecraftian stuff, and this is not like regular Lovecraftian stuff. There's something else, at work here. Um, and so that's the one question. Question number two: in Abscission, it's mentioned that Selena has a reaction to the ink because
Yes.
she's iron deficient.
Yes.
So obviously that's like a thing that's very much associated with the Fae.
Yes.
Which is iron is their weakness, and iron is also the thing that keeps what's his name? The old guy at the end of the game.
Oh, what's his name? Spencer McGregor.
Yeah, Spencer McGregor. Also,
Yeah.
great British name.
Yep. Super British.
Are you trying to say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was kept in that basement, and he was
Yes.
chained up by iron, which is presumably, why, his powers were contained. But like, iron it's interesting that you mentioned, because iron, because like the thing that I would have imagined is that like you wouldn't have been able to bloom in the factory, which seems like it would have been full of iron. Because like why would because that's something that I was thinking. It was like iron inhibits the growth of the plant. I guess I'm not
Yeah.
really sure what to call it, but the factory is a weird place for that because there's metal everywhere, right?
Well, there's metal, but there's not iron. I mean,
Iron,
there'd be steel.
Right.
Steel's different, isn't it? And like actually making something out of cast iron is very rare nowadays.
Interesting.
So the chains that he was held with.
Well, pure iron.
I mean, because this was how many years? Well, it was like over 100 years ago, wasn't it, or something like that? Oh, so yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so yeah, it's this. But again, yeah, I wanted to sort of give it a link it to existing sort of folklore and rather than just making up everything I wanted to have it so that things that people could hear about, because I don't know what bits I'm going to add in and how long this has been going on throughout the centuries and things like that. And
so the way I interpret it is that if somebody wanted to think of this as a Fey creature, they could have, but it's not necessarily a Fey creature. Okay. So then, related to Selena, because I find Selena, her story, the fact that because the mystery of Abscission starts off with there's a woman whose body has exploded in her apartment. What's up with that? And that's a very compelling mystery, and then it only gets deeper as things go on. But I do find it interesting that she turned into something weird at the end.
Yes.
And then there's like this moral choice that you have with Braintree, which is either you kill them both and set them on fire and burn them, or you trust to the CDC. And the CDC had already dealt with the doctor who had accidentally become infected, and he had died. So like walk me through a little bit about that there, because on the one hand, if you kill them, they're definitely dead. But on the other hand, is there anything that can be done to them, or are they just going to be flesh puddles?
I I don't know, to be honest. So I left that ambiguous up to me because I thought, if they exist, is there something that could be done? Is it a way it could be reversed? I mean, it's not actually even Selena's body that like she's like grown a new one. So is there anything for it to go back to? Could Torrance go back? But I left that ambiguous for me, like just as a way of potentially there could be. Yeah. So I haven't decided yet.
Because it connects to one of the endings of Abscission, where Wool basically amputates his arm, I think.
Yeah.
And the thing, this is something that I sort of struggled with, which is the nature of the infection.
Yeah.
And I admit that, you might not fully have even an answer for this question. But, this is why we engage in fan theorizing, right? Which is that he survives by basically cutting off his arm.
Yeah.
And the thing is, on the one hand, they describe it as like a blood infection. So surely if he was infected, it would circulate throughout his entire body. He wouldn't necessarily just remove it by cutting off his arm. But the way that I interpreted it is that Wool is choosing to cut off his own arm, but also in the same sense, like dealing with his trauma. And like cutting off his arm is symbolic of him cutting off his trauma over like the past decisions that he's made, his wife dying, etc., etc. And that's why he doesn't turn. Because it's a psychological infection as it is a physical one.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, I mean there is a level of psychology to it because it's about desire. The idea is that I wanted a morally grey antagonist in that in McGregor's mind he's giving a gift, and from some if you look at it from some perspective, having everything you wanted, whether it was real or not, is a wondrous gift. Like you could relive the same wonderful day again and again, or you could live forever in your own mind. Your actual body may be like a hulking, lumpy mass, but if your consciousness isn't there, then isn't that that's a lot of people. Escapism is a big thing. So, but also isn't a level of suffering part of the world, and doesn't that you can't just have wonderful things. So it's about a lot of my games also about personal choice and about sort of rejecting authority. So if the authority says that this is for your own good and stuff, you should have the right to choose not to have it, even if potentially it is the best decision. But I think that level of autonomy is important for everybody. So it's the infection, I don't see it as purely a blood infection, but it moves slower and it's a lot more insidious. So by cutting off his arm so quickly, he did also stop it physically moving, but there is also a psychological level, and it was that in my mind, that ending where he cuts off his arm is the canon ending.
I was going to say, right?
Yeah.
Because firstly, it's always interesting to have a protagonist with disabilities, right? I think video games are maybe the perfect medium to explore characters who do have disabilities, because firstly, if you're doing a movie or something, it's always difficult to work around like portraying a disability on film. But with a game, you can just do the pixel art, you can just code it, in that way. But it's interesting that you mentioned that that's the canon ending, because I actually thought that the canon ending would be that he runs away and he dies, and like the cult just sort of goes on, because with him surviving, I think that like they have to get cleared off the board in some way. But like I said, I think there are many different ways that people can interpret it as a canon ending. You can choose to submit and be in the mind prison, I guess. It's hard to talk about what that is. Which leads me to another question. Why trees, right? Why like plant life as a particular kind of manifestation of the otherness? Is that because you work in nature?
No, I don't know if it was as deep as that. I just thought it was just an interesting image, and I love watching body horror and things like that, and like existence and sort of strange organic nature. And I just thought, it would be strange if there was some sort of weird bulbous living tree just and that just became part of it. And what would something that grew out of someone look like? So it's not. I mean, it looks like a tree, but it's not necessarily a tree.
Right.
So it's and then it just yeah. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I thought there is a sort of a reason for it, but
Well, it's because
it'll come out later in the time.
sure. I mentioned that I'm not arachnophobic, and I'm not really. I handle
Yeah,
spiders, all of that jazz. But I am actually freaked out by like vines crawling on a thing. You
yeah,
know, like if I see a lot of vines or tendrils just like spreading out from a thing, that freaks me out a lot more than spiders,
yes,
because a spider has 8 legs, but it's got legs in a sort of uniform way, which is why like in the speaking of the Lost Door, there's that one creature which is like a hand growing out of a person,
yeah.
and that really freaks me out because it's not spider like per se, but it's actually closer to like a weird mass of things. So it's interesting that you mentioned plants because I'm thinking, plants show up. Braintree he refers to himself as a gardener when he
Yeah,
does that thing to Stanhope.
yeah,
What is he actually doing? Because he like it cuts to black obviously, and then there's a big mass of flesh on the table,
yeah.
and he implies that he slowed it down. Are there like rituals that these people can do to like affect the magic, or what's going on?
So basically by using an iron tool,
Mhm.
it has a similar effect of like cauterizing. It basically sort of nullifies areas. So by by trimming it off, it's it slowed it down. The presence of iron makes it shrink back into itself. I mean, with
Interesting.
McGregor, it changed completely. Like, so basically, it couldn't follow its. I guess it's similar to something like sort of cancer, where cells duplicate and do things that they weren't supposed to do, and it's just changing the nature of that. And iron would just changes the nature of what this thing can do and nullifies it and and like I say,
So
this has been a historical thing across the world for
So if you have
centuries.
a protagonist who has like a blood disorder where they produce more iron,
Yeah,
because that does exist,
yeah,
then that person would be less susceptible to the
yeah,
effects.
yeah, potentially, yeah,
That could be a fun detail.
yeah. But
um,
that was another reason for using the iron, is obviously because we do have iron in our blood, obviously in a different
yeah,
level. But then I thought that would be an interesting reason why it affects
it,
one person more than another in a
yeah.
certain weird
No,
way.
I really like that detail, because iron deficiency is a kind of thing, but lots suffer from it because of the diet or whatever. And it was just a fun detail because like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. She reacted to it because she had less iron in her blood, so things just weren't in sync.
Yeah,
Um, the cult is kind of interesting. You mentioned earlier that there is this, you have a choice to make something. You have a choice to choose, even if that choice might not be real. But it is the what I think it was the bookshop lady. She did mention that like Selena's life did have like a moment of happiness, like the tattoo that she got, the ink,
yeah,
made her happy. Um, and it's interesting that sort of like that's how the cult kind of spread. You find these disaffected people maybe on the margins of society, and a lot of those people are very involved in tattoo culture. You give them a tattoo, and that's like their introduction because you mix the ink in. There's like and then obviously you permanently mark them, and there's like more to that. But that's a really nice detail. I thought that was like a great way to do the cult because the cult that exists in Abscission is not the kind that I would imagine would be just like the one in Carnival, right? It's so different.
yeah.
The way the things manifest is just so different, that like I think it's interesting. And related to this, so Carnival is also a game that has body horror. Um, it's if I am not mistaken, in the game, the mutations that those people suffer from, the members of the cult, um, like the main guy whose name escapes me. Those mutations are not permanent.
No,
They come and go.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they when they yeah, they'll they happen for a little bit, and then that's why people wear costumes. That was the historic reason, was that so they could go about without amongst the people who weren't doing it without being noticed, and then they would go away again. So it just happens once a year.
Interesting. And then part of the one of the endings that you can get is basically if you reject sort of everything, and there's like, I guess, cultist uprising. There's like those people are rioting in Venice, right? That's what's happening. They're like monstrously rioting about, but the newspapers don't report that as fact, because also this is the 1930s. So if like the police have to put down a weird mutant uprising, that just sort of gets lumped in with the other uprisings that might happen against Mussolini.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. Because I thought that it would sort of like, it'd be interesting if it sort of reached a point where sort of the Venetians who were following Babao would finally think, well, actually, let's use this for something. Let's fight back, because, and I like to have this idea that there's not really a good sect and a bad sect. It's just like there's just a lot of areas of weirdness. So and I thought it'd be quite nice to actually have these, you're looking into the strange parts of Venice, but actually if they're fighting against Mussolini, so are they evil, or are they just set in their ways? Are they just traditional? Are they just following in the way the fascism was the invasion and they're fighting back against it? So I like that morality.
No, it's generally interesting, because you are right, and you're one of the few people I think who characterizes Italian fascism correctly, which is that they were uniquely obsessed with the future, and so to a very conservative culture, that would actually be the danger. Today we think of fascism as very conservative, but the fascists of those days were also rebelling against things like monarchies, which are obviously much less commonplace nowadays. But it is also very funny that, because I initially, you and I were both very left wing. This is a left wing podcast, but when I initially played this, I'm like, I'm not working with this fascist lunatic. I'm not going to be his Gestapo, whipping boy. And then I played the game, and I thought, okay, well, we didn't really do anything against the cult. We kind of, if ever there was a situation to like kick down a door and like point a Tommy gun at somebody, that would have been the time. So then I thought, okay, well, let me cozy up to him, and then we'll bring the army in or something, and we'll stop this. And he just ran away.
I just wanted to show him as just an absolute abject coward, just all talk as
I don't respect these guys, and nobody should, and that's kind of how they are. They're very bluster, right? When they have a person that really can't fight back, that's when they're the most full of bravado. But when they actually, because you would think like a guy like this would be like, all right, I'm confronting the enemies of Italian order and stuff like that, you would think he would be gung-ho to do stuff, and he's not. He's just a coward. Nothing happens. Nothing happens in that ending where you bring him along, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, well, he was actually completely ineffectual as well, so there you go. But it is, it's interesting that like you can't really solve the problem. Well, I guess you could have, right? Because I imagine that because we contrast that guy who's a reporter to somebody like Will Stanhope, right? If Stanhope really wanted to, he could have brought like a SWAT team or something like that, when he was doing these things. He doesn't, because I think, firstly, he thinks it's probably too dangerous. Secondly, he probably thinks that like he doesn't want to involve more people than necessary, because that's the kind of he's cut in that kind of vein of like a classic noir detective, right? Those types of guys don't work well with others, and he had a partner, Drummel, but Drummel died. So it's that kind of thing. Whereas here, you're just a reporter. you literally can't do anything. So you have to confront the creature at the end. And it was interesting that in Lovecraftian stories, oftentimes humans have no agency. So to confront this eldritch creature and go, well, actually, I was deeply dissatisfied with my life, but now I'm not. So this rejection just upsets this creature, and it just leaves. I thought that was very funny. But it's a nice subversion of sort of Lovecraftian tropes, because it shows that you really understand, like what was the thinking behind there.
Well, that ties into sort of the nature of Baba and the fact, and that also ties into Abscission because because McGregor always talks about how it is a gift, and that's what they're trying to spread with the ink and stuff, is not necessarily to draw worship. It's literally just to give this sense of elation, and by giving a small amount of the blood, it will just give a sense of elation and happiness and satisfaction, and that's as far as it'll go. If you have more, then obviously you can get further elation, but your body is sacrificed. But are you all right?
Oh yeah, sorry.
So
I
we
uh,
collapsed.
oh
Is
no,
that your body
sorry.
mutating? Is the but yeah, it was a similar thing, and Babbo was sort of the tie-in if to Abscission is Babbo was a gift from this queen to him.
Interesting.
So that he was a similar gift. So why
Gift,
is
right?
this queen giving gifts to Earth which are so maybe misguided, or maybe not, and maybe we're just not able to. I mean, have you ever seen Sphere?
Yeah, yeah, I've seen
It's
Shrek.
not, it's not, it's just a lack of understanding, and spoilers for Sphere, but
Yeah,
it's just a lack of understanding of what it actually did, and it could have been something fantastic, but also, is that something that humanity is ready for? If it's not a suitable gift, but it's a gift, is it really a good gift? It's, and this again, this sort of level of ambiguity, and there's a further story behind that about how does the grey man then tie into all this, and that's what will be eventually shown in
yeah.
sort of the final game of
Oh,
the
the
arc,
final game. Oh well,
which isn't
I can't.
Slazak. There's another one after that, but there may be another one in between. I don't know, but I know what
Yeah,
the final game will be about, and it'll be,
interesting.
yeah,
Because this you're reminding me of have you you know who Yahtzee Croshaw is, right?
I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
I love those games. They're a big
Yeah,
inspiration
the
for
the
me.
show Mythos,
Yeah,
because he has his own Lovecraftian world, and his
yeah,
Lovecraftian world is very weird and strange.
yeah,
But like, I guess spoilers for those games. Like the final game reveals like, oh, actually, the creature. Everybody kind of thought like, oh, we were appeasing this dark god, and it would like come to Earth and change everything. But no, actually, it didn't want to do that, and it was just looking for a new puppet.
yeah,
So everybody was like orchestrating this plot that goes across time and space, literally time and space,
yeah,
and they just didn't understand.
yeah,
And that's like a core thing with a lot of like the best Lovecraftian work, which is that people don't understand the powers that they're actually working with, but their understanding of it is like their own hubris.
yeah,
They try and interpret something from a thing that they think is a god, and they don't know what they're actually doing, and they don't even bother to interrogate the motives of this thing. They just sort of assume that if they're the one who are hearing the message, then the message is meant for them, kind of
yeah.
dealio, which is very interesting. One question I do have to sort of like peg you on, which is um, kind of maybe a moment in Abscission which I think might be kind of divisive, which is the moment where Wool gets infected for the first time.
Yeah.
So I've seen some people which kind of say like that's a little bit ridiculous. Why would he
Yeah,
just scratch? He gets a weird, almost demonic looking letter, and there's like a red part to it, and he just scratches at it, and he gets pricked with a nail.
yeah.
Um, so walk me through the decision for that, because I kind of feel like also maybe that's like the bridge too far. You know what I mean? Like I could have imagined him because Will passes out easily, right? I could have imagined him just like some guy broke into his apartment and jabbed him. But I'd love to hear your reasoning for it.
Well, if you watch the cutscene, it's very subtle. If you watch the cutscene, so yeah, he does rub off at it, but the needle actually comes out. It's him touching it. The needle the needle is actually sort of alive. It's a little part of this blood, and it retracts after it sticks him. So him just holding the letter. So the letter was a gift from McGregor, and McGregor wanted to offer the gift of happiness to his enemy because he was told being revenge wasn't the way, so he wanted to
Yeah,
give this gift to Stanhope. and that's why he sent this letter delivered by Braintree that when it was held by Stanhope would inject him with the blood, and it's part of a little tiny needle of this tree. So
But
that's
does that
a tiny branch. So.
But does that not go against the idea of giving somebody a choice? Because if he just picked it up, he'd get infected. He doesn't know what it is before he reads it. Or
Yeah.
does it only infect him once he has awareness of what it is?
Well, I mean, McGregor isn't a fan of individual choice. He thinks everyone should be given this gift,
Right.
Whether they want to or not. So that's part of the argument that Stanhope has with him afterwards, is saying you're giving people this thing, but they don't know what they're having. So they should be allowed the choice. So McGregor forces this upon him. But I think part of it is also he doesn't want him to have it, so he's happy for there to be a chance that Stanhope won't ever open this letter. Because McGregor's just getting on with his things. He just sent this out as a gift. It wasn't part of his plan that he'd draw Stanhope in and get him to go to all these places.
Yeah, that's actually his undoing, right?
Yeah. So it was just like, I'll send this gift as an offering, and whether it reaches him or not. And obviously then it starts his infection. But again, but McGregor isn't, he's not a perfect person. I wanted sort of, McGregor it was grieving his wife, and he was trapped for a huge amount of time, and he's completely traumatized,
right.
And he wants to help people. He doesn't know the best way about it. He's he's losing his humanity and things like that. So
yeah, he might not even think that's that big of a deal.
Yeah, and he knew that he wanted to just kill Stanhope, but then he was persuaded not to by the Queen for whatever reason. So, and why would she persuade him? Who knows? When lots of other people, who knows? I mean, I know.
Well, one person knows.
Yeah. But yeah, so the fact that so the opening the letter, and the little and there was a little smudge there, but it could have come out of any part of. But I just thought it'd be interesting if he was rubbing it, and why is there a needle in the paper?
It does. To use a phrase from Knives Out, the terminus of the nexus now is irrevocably connected as soon as it becomes infected.
Yeah.
Because, well, there's not what because he would, if Stanhope had never managed to get infected, then a huge part of the rest of the game just I don't necessarily think would have happened. But it's kind of like you need that. It's like a narrative bridge. But some players might not necessarily sort of appreciate that moment because I'm very genre savvy, right? I've read a lot of Lovecraftian books. I'm not going to handle just a random weird looking letter, with no gloves or anything like that. I might want to be, suspect about those types of things. But Stanhope is not necessarily genre savvy, and previous exposure to the unknown, he forgot about, right? Because he doesn't remember the events of Snarl.
No,
he has no idea what he went through. So, like, for him, it's just a letter. And he's an old-fashioned kind of guy. He talks about how he doesn't like using a computer, so he might be more amenable to a letter. In that kind of way. It's interesting. I do appreciate some of the choices. Like the thing. So with the tattoo owner, right? You can't non-fatally wound him. You have to shoot him. It's those moments I'm like, okay, well, it could have been something different. It could have been something else. I appreciate the vision, right? But there's always the what if.
Yeah.
Is there any part of your games where you feel like you really would have changed something if you could have going back, or are you more or less happy with how everything has turned out?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm never 100% happy with anything because it's just about reaching, like, not perfect but finished. Because you could redefine something for 10 years and someone would still find parts of the plot sort of they wouldn't quite fit, or they'd think, oh, that's a little bit too contrived. And I know he said, like, if that didn't happen then this wouldn't happen, but that tends to be, that's life, that's causality, isn't it? So, and you know, if you trip over, you hurt your toe, and then because you're walking a bit slower, you're late for your appointment, and because you're late for appointment, that's just, you know, things happen, and then which makes other things happen. But also like there is aspects of it that I potentially want to change, and maybe like add more characters in, or add more puzzles in, or maybe tweak the story. I mean, I'm relatively happy with how Abscission turned out, but maybe going down the line there may be you know, sort of some little. I try my best to sort of round up any plot holes, or if not, you know, I can leave some strands which can then be expanded upon. But I don't want to have. I want whatever I do to have an internal logic. So whether that logic makes sense in the real world doesn't necessarily matter. It's whether it makes sense within, and it's consistent within the world. And I've talked about this on other podcasts where, like, you have like Japanese ghosts and things like that. They'll have an internal logic, and it'll say what you got to do is you got to wear red at midnight, and then and if you know, and that kind of stuff, you sort of just go with it because it's consistent across all of it. But if you just went through like you have to I don't know, there will always be parts, and like with Carnival as well, I think there's maybe things I could have changed and stuff like that, but you have to, at some point you have to reach a point where you go, okay, I'm going to carry on, and it's, you know, if people like it, they like it, and if they don't, that's okay, because not everyone's there is no way of pleasing everyone. People like different things from different stories and stuff like that, and some people find you know, what was it? I mean, what's a good example? I don't know. There's stuff. I mean, you know, loads of people love Harry Potter. I hate Harry Potter because I just think, like, I don't like any sort of like chosen one narrative, or you know, determination by birth. You know, the Muggles are rubbish at music because by blood, and it's just like, oh no, that is not for me as a lefty. That is not for me. Like, you know, but birth gives you certain you know, and I'm not a massive fan of superheroes, like some of them, but like, so there's certain things, but loads of people love them, so, you know, there's not a right or wrong with taste, is there? So
How do you feel about the Lord of the Rings?
I love Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
I think as a British person, it's a crime. It's treason against the crown if you don't like Lord of the Rings.
I mean, I live very near to where it was written, so like I live in the Midlands, so near Birmingham's is Saruman's stronghold, you know, and the hills nearby. You know, I work in those hills, so, you know, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan as well. I've been to the Tolkien village because Tolkien was born in this country.
Okay.
He was born in Bloemfontein, I think. Because there's like a whole part of this country, it's like a little village where you go, and it's like very Lord of the Rings themed, and that only makes sense if you realize that Tolkien was actually born here. You know, I like Aragorn is the chosen one, but he's not a chosen one in the way that like Harry Potter is the chosen one. Like very little goes right for Aragorn over his entire life. He's forced to be a itinerant ranger in the wilds. You know, he's got to be at the bequest of a grumpy wizard and an immortal elf. By the time he actually gets to the throne, he's like he's several decades old. He's got a very different, and like ultimately the story's not really about him. The story's about other people, like the hobbits. And so that's like the saving grace, I think, of that particular kind of thing. But if you don't like chosen one narratives, then does Stanhope not have a little bit of that? Because it seems like he's building for some kind of destiny. And because that's like the impression that I get from Snarl, which is that they don't, the gray man doesn't kill him because he has a greater part to play. But I guess that's not because he was born to have that role. It's just maybe that's the way it ended up shaking up.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Snarl, I mean, there's someone who, like, obviously, again, spoilers for Snarl. Potentially, Hagstrom turns up at the end of Snarl, just in the background, having accepted the bargain of the Grey Man. But Snarl is set 25 years before that happened. So how does he get there? Why? You know, it's not maybe it's not necessarily that he's destined to do something, but that he has done something, but just not at that time.
Yeah, time is
So
very interesting as a theme because it often recurs in a lot of Lovecraftian works. Like the show Mythos deals with time. A lot of other Lovecraftian, like my favorite Lovecraftian story is The Color Out of Space.
yes, yeah,
Which the Cthulhu mythos, all that stuff is interesting, sure, but The Color Out of Space is my favorite because it's the most weird, strange thing, and
yeah,
it's never really explained. It's just
yeah,
a thing falls from the sky and it causes all these strange happenings, and it's very
yeah,
self-contained, and like for me it distorts reality, right?
yeah,
And I imagine that's like how a lot of Lovecraftian stuff would work. Like it would change reality and time, and things would start to be different, and
yeah.
like that's a core part of this game. And obviously time is working differently because I think it's implied that Stanhope was given visions of the future, because if I'm not mistaken, like stills from Abscission show up in Snarl at the end.
Yeah.
So that's like he's being shown the future, or at least a possible future. um and that's like a good, it's a good representation. But other Lovecraftian themes, like how would you say that is sort of manifested in your work?
So I think I like the idea of I never like so I do a lot of I've done a lot of like tabletop role playing, but I've never been like, I loved Call of Cthulhu more than anything, and sort of leaned into that because you don't feel powerful and your characters just get worse, which I love it. And it's I like it's like I don't know, it's the human difficulty spike. That's that's what it's like yeah, if it has to be a challenge, and sometimes all you can do is just stare up at the the unknown, and just try to not go mad and try and survive. And it's this um yeah, I've where heroes are sort of like super cool and they can do
Hmm.
anything, that just doesn't appeal to me at all. I like
Oh, yeah. You've got to have
so
a guy
so
who's kind of a loser.
yeah,
uh,
and I like, and mystery is the main thing. Like you said, the color out of space is fantastic because you just don't know what it is, and that leads you on all sorts of levels of interpretation. If you're just given my favorite part of any sort of mystery film or anything is where you just don't know, and when the monster is revealed, that's sort of a finality and that's the end of it. But if the monster's not revealed, then it leads to further, you can think of all sorts of things. And it's a continuation of that. And that, I don't know, I think it's the essence of wonder and terror
yeah,
appeals to me. I mean, I could, and I like the um yeah, it's, I don't know.
okay,
It's stuff. It just appeals to me at a visceral level that this I'd love mystery, and it's these
yeah.
great
I
strange
I
mysteries. And like you, I don't like I've said on another podcast, like the great race of Yith and stuff. They're just like long necked bendy aliens.
yeah, they're like
I'm not
tubes.
fussed. Yeah, I'm not fussed by them at all. Cthulhu as well. Like, I know people, it's called Call of Cthulhu, and everyone talks about Cthulhu, but he's just a big sort of hulky thing with some tentacles out his face. He's not very exciting. But then you have like something like like a Shoggoth,
Yeah.
or like Hastur, who's just sort of at the end of the universe with idiot
Mhm.
pipers, and he's just amorphous and could be anything. Or like Nyarlathotep, who can be anyone and just decides to play with humanity and stuff like that, and a
I'm quite fond
thousand
of the King in
faces.
Yellow idea.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I kind of like that because the big part of that is people sort of doing this stuff to themselves,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
a theme, right? Like Stanhope doesn't have to investigate this. I think early on in the game, Luna actually wants him to pull off the case,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
uh, and he's like, "No, I'm going to do it." And
yeah.
that's
It's not. Yeah,
we
it's not even his case. He's just
no,
he just go
no.
he goes off the rail. He goes off the rails a little bit, and
Yeah,
digs
it's funny
into
that
it.
you
So.
mentioned that. Why did you decide to make him a vice detective and not like a homicide detective?
Because I thought that he'd be too, he moved to Vice, because I say it early on, I think Bruce talks about it, he was sort of more on homicide, but then the Lascardo case just sort of, and then Ben died, and it just broke him. And I wanted to show that he was a guy who was past his prime, who wasn't looking for challenges anymore, and but something came along which would draw him in.
How old is he meant to be in this game?
He's about 50 odd, I think.
50. Okay, I was thinking he was just. Actually, the reveal is that he's 25, but he's just had a time of it.
I mean, his daughter's about his daughter's 20 odd. So
okay,
I've got a timeline somewhere, but I think he's about 51. I think.
About 51. Okay, because I was thinking he was like maybe in his 40s. Kind of, maybe, I don't know. It's
just past his 40s, but yeah, no, he's haggard. He's haggard and old, and he lives alone in his apartment, and he forgets his daughter, and he's. But yeah, I don't know. I wanted him.
Do you have an explanation? I can't remember this, but are you gonna cover like Heather at all in your future projects? You don't have to say, but like, is she gonna be relevant? Or?
Yes. Yeah, she'll come back.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it is interesting. I think 2 of your games now have had very heavy themes about like the loss of a spouse. Because the motivating reason for Carnival is that the main character wants to escape the ghost of his fiancée who broke off their engagement.
Yeah.
And here we have in Abscission, we've got a character whose death of their wife like broke their family.
Yeah.
That's. May I ask why is that? Is that like a theme that just happens, or are you are you actually trying to write it in?
You could dig deep into my psyche.
Well, I mean, ask the hard-hitting questions, right?
Yeah. Well, Carnival, strictly speaking, Carnival was written in 2012. So, because I wrote it as it's a novella, which is also on Amazon. So yeah, Carnival's been around for ages, and but the idea with Carnival was I thought, this will make. I was originally going to do like little horror Byte, so I thought I'll do little short games for like £2 or £3. Quid is £1 in Britain, and
I know your side. Yeah. Right, I've had your British food. I know your.
There you go. So yeah, the idea was that it'll be really short, and then I started to do it. I thought it is too linear. So I'm going to like there's characters that aren't in the novella, like Dante, Enzo, and so like, and Don Vincenzo, he's not in it either. So I thought I'll expand it, and then it got to where it was, which is about 4 or 5 hours. But
okay.
But yeah, so I wrote that ages ago. So, and then I wrote Abscission, I don't know, 8 years later. And that just seemed, I mean, the loss of a spouse and how it would affect a family and things like that. Because I wanted to, I just thought it was more interesting, really, and so it's just a coincidence, really, that those two games happen to have gone through that.
Well, technically, in Teeth of Glass, the protagonist makes a choice to abandon his loving wife.
There you go. He does. Yes. Yeah. But I guess loss is one of the themes. I tend to have a theme of like self-identification, being able to choose your own path is a big thing in my games. I also want to have I want to have some form of moral core, not like a message that I think should go spread around the world or anything.
I mean,
but I want to have some reason, not just like a set of events happen and then it's the end. I want it to sort of indicate something and feel and maybe draw a reaction from people.
So George R.R. Martin says that the human heart in conflict is the only story worth writing about.
Yeah,
and I tend to agree with him. I've fallen a bit out of love with the Song of Ice and Fire series, especially because I feel like the series is never actually going to be finished.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're a fan of it. Are
I've
you?
read like I think I read 3. It was just too many
Yeah.
characters, too much going on.
So
Um,
there are some weird Lovecraftian bits in that story that
yeah,
I also think are kind of cool. But um, ultimately, you want to have characters. The point of a lot of games is you need to have conflict, and
yeah,
people whose lives are going well are not interesting characters
yeah,
for video games, like or anything really, right? Like there's a reason why the noir detective is such a schlub of a person whose life is
yeah,
basically breaking down. It's because this is the kind of person who would be desperate enough to take a case that is so obviously doomed.
yeah,
um, right? If Stanhope was in a better position in his life, you might think, wait a minute, if I take this case, my family might not see me again, or I might die, or something like that. But his relationship with his daughter is so busted that it never really occurs to him to do that. In fact, he even forgets that it's her birthday.
yeah.
So it's like, oh yeah, this is the kind of person who is, like that. But okay, so I don't want to take up more of your time, but I think I have like two more questions, and I think we're gonna be done for today.
Well,
So,
just to quickly go back, so I also like to show that everyone, again, this is a lefty thing. I would like to show everyone has value.
mhm.
So even those people who have from the outside totally mucked up their lives, and Stanhope's not like necessarily a great guy or anything like that. He's not. He'll speak to people really harshly when they're clearly struggling, and he's very he's not very well attuned to, or he's really good at spotting some things, but then he doesn't know what to do
Mhm.
about them, and he's not perfect. But I wanted to show that like he can have a positive influence, and I like characters that are not perfect. I hate perfect. I hate Superman. Superman's so boring. Um, I haven't seen the latest one. I've been told the latest one's a bit, but like he's so like Superman, and he can do anything, and he's just completely incorruptible, and it's just like, oh, it's so boring. But I like sort of, it's, what is it? Was it wabi sabi or something? The Japanese idea of like imperfection as perfection, and
Hmm.
you know fixing pottery, to show where the cracks are, but then it becomes
Right,
something
it's
better.
it's where they repair a
Yeah.
broken vase with like gold or something. Is that what you're
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I like to, a theme, a sense that people can be redeemed, and
No,
um,
no, for sure, I agree with you. Right, Stanhope has to earn his redemption. He has to like
yeah,
do the hard work of changing himself as a person.
yeah.
And our protagonist in Carnival, whose name escapes me, Jonathan. I want to say his name is Jonathan.
James.
James. There we go. It's James'
Yeah,
name. And he has to confront some very messed up things about his own life
yeah.
in order to come out the end of it. But on the other hand, um, I wanted to ask, like, have you considered making a game where the protagonist is more outright villainous?
Um, Not really. No, I like so. Um, I want to, in a game, because I know there's like anti-heroes or villains, but I don't find um even the villains in my games aren't necessarily villains to their mind, and I think that's going to be a lot of actual villains in real life would be they don't think I'm going to be evil, and because evil's cool. They
Yeah,
think
yeah. McGregor thinks he's
I'm doing
helping the
the right
world.
thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And people in real, there's people on the right and who think they're doing the right thing, and so it's yeah, I don't find it, yeah, and I wouldn't want that character to succeed.
Hmm.
And I want a character that um yeah, in his own mind is trying to protect and is trying to help, and that's generally what I'm going to. And they might be just doing that in a small, like just for themselves or their family or something like that. But I want, um, yeah, I'd find it really hard to write effectively as well. I don't think I'd be able to write it effectively and take joy in writing, imagining, oh, what's a horrible thing that someone could do. I mean, there is stuff like that you can make Stanhope do, with what some of the endings and stuff like that. So, um, but yeah, I don't know. I liked. I wouldn't want to. So like, I don't want to give a spoiler for another game, but there's another point and click game, which I know you said, I think you said it was your favourite, which goes towards a very bleak ending. And there's just one ending.
Which one is that?
I don't want to say. I don't want to spoil another person's game because I don't want to spoil me. But like, yeah, another point and click, which you really like, which is similar to mine.
Yes.
Anyway, but it goes towards a very bleak end, and the protagonist isn't evil or anything. But like again, I don't want to railroad into just a really negative outcome, and I know that it's affecting. It's certainly affecting, but I want to have part of what I like about horror is an idea, and this is I don't want to quote Neil Gaiman because he's gone all weird. Because I used to love him, but I can't anymore. But anyway, the idea that not just the idea that there is evil in the world, but that evil can be defeated. So,
to quote Gandalf, there's more to there's more forces at work in the world than evil, right?
Yeah.
I always wonder, right? Because the thing about a lot of point-and-click adventures, and this playing Monkey Island, is a lot of the heroes of those games are actually kind of like psychotic in the way that they react to the world, and like they'll just do something that makes it just seems completely random or nonsensical, and then it's like, this is needed to progress the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
And like, well, this person's actually crazy. I would not want to spend any time around this person in real life. Yeah. But the narrative treats them as if they're like the good guy. Whereas it's rare to find a game where you're actually the bad guy, and that's the way that it's meant to be. But
I can't. I mean, I don't know. I can't even think off the top of my head any like that.
Right. And so for my final question for today, what are your top 3 scary movies, and what would you recommend that somebody watches during Halloween?
Oh God. Well, it depends if you go like all time or recent or
any that come to mind.
Okay. I mean, my favourite go-to is the 1978 Dawn of the Dead.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
Love it. Watched it a billion times growing up. Because I don't tend to. I loved Evil Dead 2 as well. Mm-hmm. Evil Dead 2 was fantastic. But thinking about recent ones, I know some people didn't like it. I really like Longlegs.
Interesting.
I thought Longlegs was really good. I mean, I don't think it's scary, and it was very silly. I really liked the Nicolas Cage Color Out of Space. I thought it was hilarious. It's like when the way he just stopped flipping out, and but I thought it was really good. Actually, it had the essence of it because it was just odd.
Yeah, I'm a defender of that movie.
Yeah, it really works.
Because it's maybe not the Color of Space that I wanted, but I can see the artistic vision behind it. And Nicolas Cage is great in a lot of these movies. My number one film recommendation is The Thing.
Yes,
because that is fantastic. Yeah, because that is for me that is like the scariest movie of all time in my mind. And whenever I play any of these types of horror games, I'm always looking for that kind of experience. I've yet to really find a game that really captures that particular experience. But it's like the scariest thing for me, which is to be sort of in an isolated place, completely cut off, dealing with something that I don't understand.
And there's ambiguity at the end as well as it even
exactly. That's always because I like you. I'm not a huge fan of serial killers or true crime or anything like that. It's too real for me as well. But like a weird alien that I might not really understand, that's awesome. All right, so thank you very much, Jake. This has been a lot of fun. There will be lots of spoiler warnings.
Yes, spoiler warnings everywhere.
In this, but if you'd like to shout anything out, by all means, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking another good film. I know it's going back. Is Late Night with the Devil. That's fantastic.
Oh yeah, that's really good.
really good. Really affected me. It's rare that a film sort of affects me after I've watched it, and I felt like, I've got to turn the TV off. Anyway,
I'm not a huge fan of like that demon kind of supernatural kind of stuff normally, but that one was very good.
Yeah, I'm not either, and that's why it was so weird. It's like I just thought, it'll just be, it's it's too basic and stuff. But I was like, oh god, it's actually really unsettling. Anyway, so what? Yeah, just I don't know. Support indie devs. It's speaking as an indie dev, it's we do when people send us comments and things like that, it's always appreciated. Please, if you've bought any of my games on Steam and you enjoy them, please review them. Like Carnival's only on like 29 reviews, and I know I've sold a few. I'm lucky to have sold a few, and I know people have enjoyed it, but just the reviews really boost it up and give it visibility. And yeah, and even if I'm not your favorite game developer, support whichever indie game developers you like, and really, yeah, because it's a lonely business when you're just sitting there in the wee hours coding and trying to fix something and stuff, and little comments can at the right time can sort of keep indie developers going.
Yeah, they used to refer to you as bedroom programmers.
Yeah.
Not for no reason.
Yeah. And my PC is in the bedroom, so it's true. So,
well, in the video, I say, I actually refer to you as a bedroom programmer, although I think it's maybe a little less patronizing to call you that nowadays for indie developer. But anyway, thank you everybody for watching this companion piece. You can take a look at our video, my other video that I did on Beyond Booleans. You can support the channel, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Talk to us about your favorite indie horror games. Shout out to the Patreon, Dorian, for helping to support this content. And until next time, take care and goodbye.